JM Report. I am your host, Good Old JM, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling, and this is episode 35. Folks, besides a couple of things in my personal life that I'm still dealing with, but what I do for a living, for now, I guess you can consider my profession. Living through and witnessing those god-awful 3 hours that I'm sure many of you have heard by now that just didn't belong. As, it's not really an old saying, but it is a saying and bit of a smart aleck type of way to put it, but you can't unsee what you already saw. And of course, I'm referencing to this past Monday's WWE Raw that many fans have come together through social media and just trashed how horrible of a show that was. A waste of talent. Now, keeping in mind that I like to give, for the most part, both sides the benefit of the doubt. Now, I understand that there are many injuries right now. Many are at home recovering from injuries, surgery in some cases. Some are even working injured. So things have to be toned down for the sake of their safety, they being the talent, men and women. And in most cases, when that happens, especially last minute, things are changed. And by things, I'm referring to storyline angles, the participants of said storylines. And on an occasion, and this is not all the examples or the tools, if you will, but in some occasions, basically flipping a character from heel to face or vice versa. Personally, I'm not asking the creative team, the writers, the script writers of WWE to be miracle workers. Because at the end of the day, there's only one man who approves and authorizes everything that we see and hear on television through their programming, through their network. And it was just really bad, and it's not often this happens. I mean, it's barely watchable as it is, but if they don't care about ratings and it's all about the money, then you know what? Do you, boo-boo. And the rest of us fans, especially from my time, my generation, are just gonna emotionally, mentally suffer through it. So why do I still watch? Well, on occasion, not every week, but on occasion, there can be good, sometimes even excellent wrestling matches. And I get to have storylines, to have angles, to advance some kind of interest of what's happening with a set of characters, whether it's one-on-one or a tag team, getting managers involved, getting outsiders involved. I understand that. But if your key element is entertainment on basically a sports show, even though they'll never call it that, but other networks treat it as such, I'm not being entertained. You know, I'm tired of beating on the same drum over and over again, or beating on a dead horse, or whatever the proper saying is right now. And I attend football games, baseball games. I never attended a hockey game. Not that I wouldn't want to. I would love to sometime. And yeah, I do get entertained because they're trying to score. They're trying to win the game. It's, you see the hard work in all those athletes. They're not limited by, scripts, if you will. And I know I'm definitely like trying to rip open the fine line between a legit sport versus something or an environment that's worked. I get that. But this notion, this concept to constantly be shoved in your throat that it's entertainment. So entertainment, well, okay, well, just like any other TV show that's out there, sitcoms, dramas, what have you, they've on occasion as well put out real bad episodes. Usually because the audience, their fan base, disagree with what's going on with a character. Most recently, if you look at The Walking Dead, how many people get upset that a certain character is killed off, and there isn't backlash, not like this, but that they express their anger and them being upset, the fans on social media. Why would you do this? It's not like they're not following a comic book or anything, and it's eventually going to happen. But the best part is it's tweaked just enough that there is a difference between the comic book and the TV show. So you never know exactly who's going to get axed off next. This past episode of Walking Dead, spoiler alerts, if you want to skip ahead about a minute, I didn't expect the character of Jesus dying, especially the way he did, and of all places in a cemetery. I don't know if there was any meaning behind it. I didn't stick around to watch Talking Dead, but it happened. So basically, no one's safe. I know there are a lot of Game of Thrones fans. I haven't watched it. I don't follow it. It's not that I don't like it. I just haven't. And when it came to the Red Wedding, and my God, the floodgates opened up of social media comments and blogs and video chats, what have you. Not the being upset. It's just the reactions of, oh my God, did you see that? Did you guys hear or see what happened on last night's episode of, well, not The Walking Dead, but Game of Thrones? Like a lot, if not most of the major main characters were killed off. That's shocking. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, are you suggesting we kill off characters on Raw? No, I'm not saying that, but that's entertainment as far as, to see unexpected things. At least one of them anyway. But again, trying to keep a straight head and giving WWE some, I'll rephrase what I said earlier, but some benefit of the doubt because of the lack of characters that they have due to injury or working with injury. Everything needs to be backed up or toned down or whatever. But how many times have we heard, the creative geniuses of the writing staff at WWE? I did not see any of that. Is it tough to write a show week to week like this? Yes, it is. Step by step, word for word, dialogue, segment, the timing, everything. There's a lot of work that goes into these scripts, if you will. And never thought I'll see the day that I hear myself saying the word script in a pro wrestling show. But it's not a pro wrestling show, it's sports entertainment. Well, I don't call it that. I grew up as a pro wrestling fan or just a wrestling fan. And sports entertainment, yeah, it was thrown around, not as much as today, but it was thrown around in the 80s and, of course, in the 90s. And then we all remember Vince McMahon's famous speech about having, we at the WWF at the time, think that you, the audience, are tired of having your intelligence insulted. Yeah, we're way beyond that. It was cool and ballsy to Vince to do that back then. To basically say, yeah, we're not a sport, we're entertainment. So entertain us. There's only so many times you can go back to the same drawing board of pee and fart jokes. Like, okay, we haven't seen that in a while. Or the same matches over and over again with the same people over and over again, week by week by week. It's redundant. I mean, these episodic episodes, they're stuck on repeat. Copy, paste, and repeat. That's all it's been. So not to drag too much with this, because I have a lot to say, and unfortunately run down what took place this past week on Raw and SmackDown. I mean, although SmackDown was a much better show, but I just do not understand the logic behind the now madman of Vince McMahon. I don't need to ever be in someone's shoes that runs a multi-billion-dollar company that's about to get another 10 billion or whatever it is in a year from now, to have one of my shows broadcast on their networks, to understand that, well, it needs to be run that way. No, this is an individual that sees things differently from a lot of us. Obviously, yeah, you hear it in the dialogue from the commentators, which I still refuse to listen in. That, God bless the mute button, or at least the option of switching to the Spanish commentating, which I listen and understand with. And most of the time, like, who talks like that? You had other either talk show hosts or other famous writers from other TV shows that would be interviewed on multiple platforms and in different genres, if you will. And they would ask, just like a random question. Hey, by any chance, are you a wrestling fan? And most of them will say yes. But then it's like, but who writes the dialogue? I mean, who talks like that? I'm sure we all went to school and learned how to speak properly our native languages. And then eventually, some of us, if not all of us, would pick up a little slang, if you will, speak a little street, if you will. And that's fine. That's fine. I think, at least in this point in time in my life, I think there's a time and place for it. I don't expect for me to walk up to one of my supervisors and like, yo, son, make any coffee yet? Yo, with my check, homie, or stuff like that. And that's, I'm not knocking anyone that has that kind of, or speaks with that diction, I should say. Not at all. I used to do that when I was much younger. But as time goes on, like I said, there's a time and a place for that. And I don't need to speak to, a relative of mine or specific relatives like that. Or definitely not the place of employment. Among your friends, among your peers, among maybe cousins, like, yeah, that's okay because they get it. I get it. Not everyone will. And that's the whole point. And the point I'm trying to make is Vince basically, McMahon, that is, basically just has his own English language in WWE. No power. It's not a hospital. It's a medical facility. It's a freaking hospital. The sign says hospital. That's where he's going. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm getting my treatments from. I'm sure we've all heard this. And most recently, they stopped saying number one contender. Have you noticed that? What is the point? What killed off what was working? What made sense? What many understood? And okay, if it's the whole logic to stay away or be apart from sports because you're sports entertainment, and that's a whole new thing apparently. And you want to switch up the language. You want to switch up the dialogue and the way people speak and come across television. And a lot of times doesn't make sense. The whole Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins thing that's happening now. Every time the commentators turn to Renee Young, who is Dean Ambrose's real life wife, if you will, real life, use that term used loosely now. And on occasion when I unmute what's going on because like, okay, let's see what they're saying about this, they turn to Renee Young like, hey, Renee, what do you know about this? About Dean's behavior and why he's doing and saying the things that he does. If all that is scripted and this is what she's supposed to say or react with, she's coming across as the worst wife ever. Or at least maybe one of the not so smart commentators right now in WWE. To not know what your husband does, even though you just live with him, but you have no idea what he's doing. You just go and come home as you please when you're not with the WWE. Unless there's more to it, which I doubt at this point. It's been a few weeks now that they've asked Renee for answers, but she has no idea. She has no clue what's happening with her husband and why he's doing what he's doing, at least on television, that is. I want to imagine that they have a happy home and a happy marriage. So, with all that said, and trust me, I would have a lot more, but I don't want to use up all of the computer memory here. That's at my staple. But yeah, this past Monday night on Raw sucked, and it opened up with 3.5 men. They being Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Lio Rush, and the now newly, I guess, categorized or themed or whatever, Raw GM-elect, Baron Corbin. No Dolph Ziggler. And yeah, it's been like this for a couple of weeks now, but it's apparent that Dolph is now out of the picture. Or at least out of the main spotlight for Raw once again. I know his momentum has died out a lot since about a year ago now. The speculation of whether or not he'll resign, whether he'll return, whether there will be any specific stipulations in his contract to keep him happy, to make him happy. They gave him a United States title run for a while. Did they? No. He was on Smackdown at the time, so I think they try to make him, or try to put him in a title picture for a while. You know, I can't remember all this nonsense because that's all it really is nonsense at this point. But point being that Ziggler's not part of this group anymore, and I gotta stress the fact a little bit, if that had anything to do with the changes that were made after Roman Reigns' announcement. And even then, there weren't that many injuries, that many people that were ill. But it was the starting point. Made changes for the event that took place in parts unknown. And basically rewrote Survivor Series. And wasn't supposed to be a Raw versus SmackDown event again. Just continue the storylines on the individual shows. And I think that was evident because once Survivor Series was over and you had the post-Raw and the post-SmackDown show afterwards, little to no references of what happened. Other than, Raw was a clean sweep for Raw, 6-0, even though it was actually 6-1 if you want to count the kickoff show. So let's just get through Survivor Series, get this over with, and just back to storylines, back to storytelling on Raw and SmackDown separately. Good job. So anyway, these guys were bragging in the ring about the beatdown of Braun Strowman a week ago, and Strowman appears pre-taped on the Titantron, saying that he will be back soon, and the heels continue to trash talk as the lights go out when all of a sudden Elias appears on stage singing about how much Bobby Lashley sucks. Corbin then makes a match on the spot there, having Elias take on Bobby Lashley. Elias was about to go for the win when Lio Rush pulls the referee out of the ring while making the 3 count and DQs Lashley on the spot. But Corbin then makes it a no DQ match. And the match continues until all heels jump on Elias and beat the crap out of him, similar to Braun Strowman with chair shots and throwing him into the ringside stairs. And just leave him laying. We come back from commercial and see Baron Corbin backstage, and Alexa Bliss stops by, kind of trying to consult him because Baron Corbin's focus right now is to be the full-time general manager for Raw after TLC. So in the process, because Corbin has so much on his plate and can't deal with everything right now, he appoints Alexa Bliss to, quote, oversee, end quote, the Raw Women's Division. Alexa Bliss, of course, is still out due to injury, whether it's her arm or a concussion. It's not happened. It hasn't been really too clear as of late, but last I heard it was a concussion that she sustained on a house show. I believe was before Evolution, about a week before Evolution, and has not been medically cleared. But even then, she was having arm issues, arm injuries that she was nursing at the time. And I guess a blessing in disguise to get that concussion. So now she's given extra time to heal up. And rumors started about a week ago that, well, assuming had the Braun Strowman and Baron Corbin match at TLC is still a thing, and that Corbin would have lost, the rumors were saying that Alexa Bliss would have taken over as GM. But things are changing from one week to another. Again, the injury bug is definitely hanging out at WWE right now. So Dean Ambrose was getting his shots, his tendinitis shots, his flu shots, his tendon shot, whatever shots he was getting at he was sitting in the doctor's office. He's got his sleeves rolled up. He pulls his pants down to get shots there as well. Basically, an impromptu PSA for everyone to get their shots this year, because everyone's getting sick and having bad side effects, and will not be at the arena because he'll get sick. Oh, Ambrose. Anyway, the Revival had a rematch with the Lucha Underground. Oh, Jesus. This is how much I'm losing it. With Lucha House Party from a week ago, and that the Revival was prepared this time and challenged Lucha House Party once again on a 3-on-2 basis, and the Revival lose again. Even with a week's notice, they couldn't figure out how to defeat the Lucha House Party. Nia Jax and Tamina would come out, living up to all the hate from the crowd, and Nia was bragging, and I saw I'll say a lot more than that, but comments on Twitter especially, and a lot of fans hating on this segment about Nia just isn't that good on the microphone, and just was plain bad. I mean, I don't think it was that bad. It wasn't good either, but I mean, I think she's, I guess, channeling her inner conceitedness, if you will, as a heel, knowing full well that she took away the opportunity for the fans to see a great match in Becky and Ronda at Survivor Series. And once word got out to the fans as to what actually happened, oh my God, this is all Nia's fault. I mean, I already made my opinion about that known a couple of weeks ago, and I still stick by it. It was an accident, and somebody was smart enough to say, you know what, go with it. And at the time where Nia won the Battle Royal at Evolution to become the number one contender, yeah, I said it, the number one contender for the Raw Women's title, it felt a little awkward before the Becky Lynch incident. It felt awkward to see Nia and Ronda, who were essentially baby faces, when they squared off the night after Evolution. And it's like, okay, so we got another face versus face title match coming up for TLC. And it just felt like something was missing, and that maybe Nia would have to go heel. Well, I guess the wrestling gods were listening, and thankfully one of them was not JBL. And where there was an unfortunate accident was Nia's beck and call, or better yet, her advantage or opening to, hey, here it is. I'm going to be a heel no matter what I do or say from now on. Until they get to see Becky's revenge against Nia whether it's before or after round, who knows. But for now, they're going to be hating on Nia Jax. And Becky Lynch is a real hot commodity right now. And thankfully, there wasn't any situation or storyline where Becky had to surrender the title. And I'll get to that later. So out comes Ronda to go face-to-face with Nia. Ronda Rousey challenges Nia Jax on the spots for let's do it here right now. But Tamina was just right behind her off camera, watching everything, listening in. I get that Tamina, when she did, wasn't the best on the mic, but does she have to be completely mute? I mean, she nods her head, or she just not rolls her eyes, but like moves them back and forth, and just goes with whatever Nia's saying, as you have these different facial expressions. Okay, keep it up. So, of course, Nia backs out because she's a heel. Heels turn away and turn down from challenges, being a little cowardly. At the same time, Natalya comes down to the ring. And this was legit out of nowhere because good camera work here finally. And that's probably the only good compliment I would give about this show in particular. But at no point did you ever see them appear in a background or off to the side or secondary cameraman caught them anywhere else. But as Natalya comes down the ramp, she barely makes it to the bottom of the rampway, and all of a sudden you see the Riot Squad attack her and beat her down. They leave Natalya filleting and focus on Ronda in the ring, but Ronda was able to fight them off. And Ronda was left standing, and Natalya had to be helped up. Next segment, we see the Raw Tag Team titles being defended by AOP against Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. Okay, but shortly after, Drake Maverick, oh my God, this guy's name. Drake Maverick all of a sudden grabs Bobby Roode's robe that was still ringside on the apron. Usually there will be a ring crew member that will pick it up and take it to the back, but no, it was left behind for reasons, and we will find out what those reasons were. As Maverick just grabs it, places it or actually he puts it on and starts mocking and imitating Roode on the rampway, his glorious pose, and then he does it again on top of the stage, where Roode's little platform that turns him around was still there, and Drake poses on that as well. So all of this distracts Gable and Roode. And Drake all of a sudden disappears backstage. Cut the commercial when we come back. The match continues, but almost immediately we see on Titantron Maverick once again wearing the robe backstage. He's standing in front of a mirror. He takes off the robe and places it nice and neatly over an open toilet. And then continues to urinate on said robe placed across the toilet. And steps onto the robe to push it further into said toilet. And yeah, I don't remember him flushing it, but that definitely would have caused a lot of flooding. And hopefully that was one of those old Toys R Us replica robes, because I don't care what they've used for, a worked pee or work urine, a worked urine. That's still a toilet. Housekeeping, maintenance, whomever can scrub that thing down till the cows come home, but it's still a freaking toilet. And again, I hope that was a replica robe that was sacrificed for the sake of another pee joke or fart humor or bathroom joke, whatever, that really didn't serve no purpose other than to make a madman who's sitting in a gorilla position laugh his ass off. So, of course, this is all seen on the Titantron, the only time that the Titantrons are really used nowadays. Bobby Roode is distracted and gets nailed from behind by the AOP and get the cover and retain the tag team titles. So, Maverick's revenge. Yeah, he deserves a pat on the back. Ember Moon comes down along with Kurt Hawkins, who Hawkins is now the replacement for Braun Strowman in the Mixed Match Challenge. Ironically, Ember Moon replaced Alexa Bliss, who was with Braun Strowman. So, man, this injury bug. Unbelievable. But Ember Moon defeated Alexa Bliss here. I'm sorry, Alicia Fox. Alexa Bliss. Ember Moon was in a match with Alicia Fox, who was along with Jinder Mahal. And Ember picks up the win after an eclipse. Shortly after the victory dance with Hawkins, Mahal steps into the ring and faces off against Hawkins. But all of a sudden, No Way Jose comes down, and we have a impromptu match, I believe. Again, I wasn't really listening, but it looked so awkward, and No Way Jose was basically saving Hawkins here, only for No Way Jose to lose the match to Jinder Mahal. Seth Rollins will bring back the Open Challenge, this time for the Intercontinental Championship on Raw, and there was a lot of speculation of who his opponent would be or his challenger. And another word they don't say anymore, challenger. Do they even say opponent anymore? Anyway, so a lot of current NXT stars chimed in to how great it would be to accept Seth Rollins' Open Challenge for Raw and win the Intercontinental title. One of them that I had a lot of eyes wide open was Ricochet, who's currently the North American champion down at NXT. And just imagine the match that these two could have. I mean, sure, you can have, for the first time ever, the Intercontinental champion from the WWE take on NXT's North American champion, Seth Rollins and Ricochet. Instead, we get Dolph Ziggler. Copy, paste, repeat. I mean, the match itself was pretty good, but nothing special. I mean, when John Cena was doing the whole Open US Challenge or the US Challenge Open, whatever they call it, they had actual people in the writing staff, that is, have great ideas. One of them being, you know what? Let's have John Cena, who I believe they were in Toronto that night on Raw, face an NXT up-and-comer and Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was still locked in NXT for at least another year or so after that. But he was a hometown favorite, hometown hero. Not to mention, he came up from NXT for that one night and had an excellent match with John Cena. So you mean to tell me all the hype on social media from many that came from NXT superstars, not one couldn't be pulled or brought up for one night only and make things a little interesting? Had that happened, I think the show could have been saved, but I doubt it. I mean, it probably would have been the only highlight of the night, but considering how the rest of the night went on, no. Oh, by the way, Seth Rollins retained the title against Dolph Ziggler. Then we see Alexa Bliss come down to have the first ever Q&A portion of her being in charge of the overseer in the women's division, having Sasha Banks and Bayley to come out to the ring and have members of the audience in the arena ask questions. So they go over to this a young woman, I guess. I couldn't tell if she was a teenager or a little bit older, but she was the only one that stood up and asked a question about what would they do to fix the women's division to make it better. And yeah, ironically, you would ask that after WWE just sent out a bunch of survey emails asking the fans at home what they like and what they don't like about the current product. And my answer is everything. Right now, everything. They should rehire a whole new writing staff. Maybe have a weekly appointments for events with the shrink. And start from scratch. You have nothing to lose. You have $10 billion, whatever it is, coming to you real soon. So you have nothing to lose to basically rehash and restart the entire creative team. I'm sure there's at least one person out there like, oh, JM's talking a big game. Why don't he try? You know what? I will try. And that's the very least I can do is try. And shortly after, I'll be doing a lot more than whatever these people who are apparently from TV and movie writers from Hollywood, New York, Los Angeles. Anyway. So all of this was just the rules because it was just a promo trash talking from Bayley and Sasha Banks to talk down on Alexa Bliss, who she in turn comes out. They go back and forth for a little while, and Alexa Bliss will call out Mickie James and Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke, who was just a freaking babyface over the weekend during Starcade, which I'll cover here in a bit, but really not much to cover. And here she is healing again, teaming up with Mickie James. But the two faces in the ring were able to stand their ground, and Bayley and Sasha prevailed. Okay, for no rhyme or reason. Yeah, I don't understand the whole Dana Brooke thing. They really don't know what to do with her, and that's a shame. I'm not saying Dana Brooke is one of the best ones they have right now, but there's potential there. And her just flexing her biceps every single second does not help. Moving on. The main event time was Finn Balor taking on Baron Corbin again. Literally a copy and paste rematch from the past few weeks again. So after Finn Balor was in full control of the match, Corbin calls out McIntyre and make it a 2-on-1 handicap match, and they defeat Finn Balor again. And then Lashley will come down to beat down Finn Balor again, and they fade to black. Show's over. This may not be the worst show ever, but it's definitely one of them. And throughout the night, I understand, as I looked this up as well, ratings were dropping pretty much every few minutes. And by the time they got to that third hour, realizing what the main event was, yeah, not everyone stuck around to see what was going to happen. If anything, it was predictable. This sucked. But you know what? WWE, at the end of the day, I can say whatever I want about it. The next person, the one, you listening, the person next to you, the one across the street, your neighbor, your gardeners, we can bitch and moan about all this all we want. Every day, all day, till the cows come home. Now, that's twice now that I used that reference. WWE will have the last laugh. They don't care. So does that make me the fool for still watching? Well, thankfully, by the way, the answer is yes and no. Thankfully, because I have options to watch the WWE shows. Like I said, I watch it on mute and maybe watch it in with the SAP option, so I won't have to bear the god-awful commentary that there is. I can't even call it commentary anymore. It's just chilling at the local pub, talking a lot of nonsense that has nothing to do with what you're seeing. Constantly being reminded that you're watching a WWE show and like 50 times in a minute. It may sound exaggerated, but this is basically what they're saying. Thank you for tuning in to our WWE show, as we have many WWE superstars with WWE matches that will take place in the WWE ring, as they're coming down right now during a WWE rampway, listening to WWE theme music. And here comes the WWE official that's going to officiate this WWE match for the WWE title. And here comes WWE superstar Finn Balor taking on WWE superstar AJ Styles, who announced stepping into the WWE ring through the WWE ropes. Here comes WWE announcer to him. You know what I mean? That's basically what it is. And I'm not even getting to the hashtags or the constant reminders of how the hell to download the app for the network and where you can only exclusively see it. We get it. Exclusively on the network, exclusively pay-per-view, coming on a TLC. Like, we know. is it one of those things where, every time you mention this, you get an extra $5,000 or something? From who? Every time you mention a reference like that, or what? Is there a hamster being born or something like that? I mean, come on. Tone it down. Tone down the nonsense and bring up the excitement, which I don't see coming anytime soon. I really don't. I want to believe that when it comes time to have Triple H take over, assuming that's where things are going, who knows what Vince is really thinking as far as, no, actually, I'm going to choose this person to take over. There were talks about making it a public company, that eventually the McMahons will be away from the WWE altogether and just have a different company take over once Vince is ready to step down, or God forbid something happens to him and he can't continue. But I am beyond concerned, I dare say worried, not so much about Triple H if he takes over. I think you'll have the WWE will be in good hands with Triple H is what I'm trying to say. Stephanie, not so much, because there's been a lot of evidence, a lot of proof. Whenever she's on television, it just doesn't work. It comes across as obnoxious and almost half the time too close to home or too close to reality, because in public, all smiles, and during charity events, helping the children, and that's all great stuff. Don't get me wrong. That stuff I would love to do sometime. Eventually, one day I will. I'll be involved with all that. But it's like she comes across the television and the character is beyond dreadful, and there's no payback. There's no way for the faces to win, because she's an authority figure. And that's the other thing, just too damn much authority figures again. And I'm definitely not going to forget to mention this. A lot of times of Stephanie's dialogue, she writes herself. It was just last week. Strowman, we can't have dismemberment. It's not a good corporate view or corporate look for us. And that's coming a couple of weeks after you've coming from a country that did what they did, took that blood money, and had the nerve to say what you said on live television. I don't want to hear like, oh, well, heat of the moment, oh, it's coincidence. Like, no. You had politicians, government officials breathing down their necks to cancel that damn show. And they went anyway. And the most that they did, just not mention where they were. We don't want to, I'm taking it outside the wrestling ring now, but nobody wants to tarnish or sever the relationships with that country, because gas prices will go up. I try really hard to keep politics off my show, and I will stick by that. Smackdown opened up with Becky Lynch returning to the ring after 2 weeks off to heal. No mention of her condition, but during this promo, along with Paige and eventually Charlotte being called out by Becky, a match was made at TLC, in a TLC match for the SmackDown Women's title between between Becky and Charlotte. And then the rest of the women's roster for SmackDown come out, first the heels and then the faces, basically saying the same thing about not having equal opportunities. It always goes to Becky and Charlotte, what have you, which they have a point. And Paige basically says, you know what, you're right. So how about everyone have an equal opportunity and compete in the Battle Royal, where the winner will be inserted into the TLC Championship match and make it a triple threat TLC match for the SmackDown Women's title. So far, so good. The Bar and the Big Show apparently broke up backstage earlier before SmackDown went on the air after miscues of last week's Thanksgiving feast match, where Cesaro was basically blaming Big Show for what happened and vice versa. This did not go well with Big Show and just punches and knocks out Cesaro in the locker room and walks away. I guess thanks for coming, Show, and yet another turn. Big Show's face and heel turns alone should have their wing in the Hall of Fame. It's just it's beyond funny at this point. It's ridiculous. But anyway, the Bar had a non-title match against the Usos. Very good match. I enjoyed this for what it was. But the Usos were victorious over the Bar, and the tag team champions on SmackDown are on a bit of a losing trend. Not a streak, but a trend where they're losing more matches than they need to, and they're the freaking champions. They just went through this with New Day, but they triumphed in their last title shot. So New Day's right for now is out of the picture as far as any title contendership goes. But now it looks like the Usos now are stepping up. And what they missed out, or at least didn't mention as far as I know, the Usos was the only one that won a SmackDown match at Survivor Series. So why not award them with a tag title shot? Would have made a little bit more sense as to why they defeated the Bar here, but AJ Styles will come out and invoke his rematch clause for the WWE Championship against Daniel Bryan, and the match will take place at TLC in just a regular match, no stipulations. May or may not change, but probably not. The only downfall about this, there was no Daniel Bryan on the show, at least to respond to what AJ Styles was talking about. About the friendships and the matches previously and how Bryan won the title to begin with. And AJ Styles being replaced by Bryan at Survivor Series. It would have been an interesting back and forth. Even if it led to another brawl, fine. Anything to make us forget what happened the night before. There was supposed to be a Shinsuke Nakamura-Rusev match, non-title United States, that is. And it never happened because once Rusev stepped in the ring, Shinsuke was jumping from behind before the bell rang and delivered not one but two Kinshasas, leaving Rusev laying, and officials were out there to break it up. And Shinsuke quietly walks away, all smiles on his face. No match here. This was definitely the WTF moment for me this night. Jeff Hardy will come out to let's be honest, a mock celebration of him being with the WWE for the past 20 years. No, this is complete bullshit. He signed back in 1994 as a developmental with his brother, and the Hardy Boys didn't really debut to 1998. He was out in 2003, was in the Indies and Ring of Honor that year. He would debut for TNA in 2004 all the way to 2006, and would return later that year to WWE, only to leave in 2009 and return to TNA a year later in 2010. And while he wrestled for TNA, he had a few matches and debuted for New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2011, and will leave the industry, or not the industry, but the company of TNA in 2017, returned very briefly to ROH with his brother Matt, and that's when he had his big return at WrestleMania 33, being added to the Fatal 4-Way tag team match for the Raw tag team titles that night. And here we are, 20 years later, but not with the company. Maybe in the business, I would have accepted that personally, 20 years in the business, but it's just a damn shame. WWE can be so picky and so bitter, and when it's convenient for them, they will reach out, in this case, to Impact or TNA. Like, you know what? Let's use some of your footage, which they did for the the Hardy Boys Homecoming, the documentary that they did. And they had a lot of TNA footage, a lot of Impact footage. It was mind-blowing to see that, to see and hear Dixie Carter's take on everything. But not acknowledge that here during the 20-year celebration of Jeff Hardy in the business. Like, no. Not even say, well, despite being elsewhere with different promotions, different companies, but here you are coming full circle 20 years later in WWE. This was a joke. But there was a little bit of saving grace here, as Samoa Joe will come out and mock Jeff Hardy for a lot of his substance abuse and And what do you say? Just what's his drinking issues, that is, and his substance abuse along the way. Hardy, of course, didn't want to hear about this and just challenged Joe to a match on the spot. But of course, Joe, being the heel, walks away and is never heard from again. I find it interesting as well because Samoa Joe of Impact, or TNA alumni, I guess, had many matches with Jeff Hardy. So, little irony there. Miz was defeated by Kofi Kingston from a Trouble in Paradise. The less said there, the better. Then we will see. Whoa, what happened to my notes here? Well, that's what happens when you press the space bar. That your thing goes bonkers. Randy Orton comes out with the same mask that he ripped off Rey Mysterio a week ago and explains himself, saying that he didn't really mean to disrespect the Lucha Libre culture, but he just wanted to embarrass Rey Mysterio. And this brought out Mr. 619 with the neck brace. As a fight breaks out, Orton would remove the neck brace and place the top of the chair, a steel folding chair, against Rey Mysterio's neck and drop it on the stairs with Rey's neck still in place. Kind of like old school Undertaker. He did that against Brock Lesnar and a couple of other guys. I think even Stevie Richards, poor guy. But Orton just leaves Randy laying. Orton leaves Rey Mysterio just laid out and just walks away as officials came down to break it up. So I wonder if Bane doesn't mind. No, not Bane. I think Juggernaut. I wonder if Juggernaut doesn't mind lending his mask attached to that huge collar around his neck to Rey Mysterio and have it no longer be attempted to be ripped off him or avoid chair shots like this in the future. But Battle Royal time, as it came down to Sonya Deville and Asuka. And to be honest, even though they're still teasing a breakup between Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, I would have been okay with Deville. I understand she would not have been the popular choice, but change is either good or okay at times. But the bad side usually means like, well, there's a giveaway. We know now who's not going to win the match. But I personally would not have minded too much. But the obvious choice was the winner, that being Asuka, kind of putting things back on track where maybe it should have been Asuka chosen to take on Ronda Rousey at Survivor Series, even if it would have been a one-off match, but it would have made sense. And I think based on, and then it's confirmed, this is just my assumption, based on the reaction that Asuka received when Becky Lynch was about to choose her replacement for Survivor Series, Asuka really was the only one that got a huge reaction. I mean, Charlotte got some of it, but not as big as Asuka. No way. So now it's set for a TLC match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. The belt will be hanging up above the ring, and 3 women will now fight for the title as Becky Lynch defends against Charlotte Flair and Asuka in a triple threat match in a TLC SmackDown Women's title match. So I expect a car wreck to happen, and I mean that in the nicest way, where these women are just going to tear the roof down and just beat the holy crap out of each other to win the Women's Championship. So there was a house show or live event. It's a house show that was called Starcade this past weekend. And I mentioned last week on the show, that the WWE Network was going to broadcast Starcade. At the time, I wasn't aware that it was called a special event, Starcade coverage 2018 on the network. So I was a bit misinformed, or I just misread what came across my screen and assumed it was going to be the entire event. No, it was not the case. It was just a 1-hour coverage of specific matches. That being in an 8-women tag team match, Bayley, Ember Moon, Sasha Banks, and Dana Brooke. You see, Dana Brooke was on our face team this past weekend. Defeated Alicia Fox, Mickie James, Nia Jax, and Tamina via submission as Sasha Banks tapped out Alicia Fox for the win. Then we were able to see Rey Mysterio take on Shinsuke Nakamura for the United States Championship match, but Rey Mysterio would win by disqualification. Out comes Rusev and The Miz to interfere. And I believe this was official face turn for Rusev, even though he was already getting there in the past few weeks, but this confirmed it. And The Miz teamed up with Shinsuke Nakamura to take on Rey Mysterio and Rusev as the faces were victorious in this impromptu tag team match. Then we see AJ Styles defeat Samoa Joe in a steel cage match via submission. Not often we see that. But then we didn't see other matches that were considered dark matches, even though they took place, but it was not aired on the network. There were a few clips here and there of fans that attended and put them up on social media. And one of the matches were Drew McIntyre along with Dolph Ziggler. This was probably the last hurrah they had together. Dolph Ziggler before he was pushed off to the side. This may change. We'll see. But they're probably going to stick to their 3 or 4-man staples right now. Unfortunately, Ziggler was the odd man out. But McIntyre defeated Finn Balor here in a dark match, 1-on-1. The B team of Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel would defeat the Revival. These poor guys can't catch a break. The SmackDown Tag Team Champions retained their titles against the New Day. Cesaro and Sheamus defeated Big E and Kofi Kingston. No Big Show, so the seeds were already planted. Baron Corbin was in the ring cutting a promo, only to be interrupted by Bray Wyatt. It was originally scheduled to be Braun Strowman, but of course he would receive elbow surgery the next day, so it would not make sense for him to appear here. And Bray Wyatt had a huge standing ovation and a welcomes home, basically a welcome heroes response from the audience. And Bray Wyatt would defeat Baron Corbin 1-on-1 via disqualification, only for Baron Corbin to jump on the microphone and say, nope, this is now a no disqualification match. The match continues, and Bray Wyatt defeats Baron Corbin in said no disqualification match. So 2 losses in a row for Baron Corbin in one night. And here's something interesting. Charlotte Flair would defeat Asuka 1-on-1 because why not? She's a Flair at Starcade. Charlotte or Flair needs to win. And in the main event, on the dark match, in the same steel cage that AJ Styles defeated Samoa Joe, basically said, no, keep the cage down. We have a Intercontinental Championship match between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. And Seth would retain the title by escaping the cage. And as we saw this past Monday for the Open Challenge, Rollins is still the Intercontinental Champion. So with that out of the way, I gotta say my throat got completely dry from all that stuff at the beginning. But let's move on to something more, I guess, more news story related, as there have been a few interesting stories popped up this week. One of them being rumors at this time, because one side of the story has yet to acknowledge yet, or I should say confirm this, but maybe, and we've been here before, stories of Conor McGregor appearing at WrestleMania 35 at MetLife Stadium, as Becky Lynch pointed out, about Conor gets to New York quick if a call is made. Wink, wink. As of now, and I've checked this, no response from Conor's side, at least not through Twitter, because he's still busy promoting his new whiskey. But again, we've been here before about Conor McGregor's involvement with WWE, even though he talked a lot of shites before many times actually, about him just beating the crap out of any WWE wrestler in a shoot fight, in a legit match. Of course, a lot of people stepped up and didn't stop Conor from talking shite, but it just fueled the fire, and nothing really came of it. So even last year, there were talks about involving Conor somehow, either at WrestleMania or SummerSlam, but Conor got in trouble out of New York City with a dolly and spent some jail. Well, spent some time in jail, I should say. How do you spend jail? And yeah, it would not have been a good look for WWE to recently hire the services of a recently convicted felon. So yeah, bad look. But we'll see what happens with this one, as Conor may or may not be with WWE, or at least involved. He still has a UFC contract, but a one-off would be okay, and I guess they can get away with it. Who knows? On some good news, Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan was released from the hospital after a long stay in the ICU, unfortunately during Thanksgiving. But he posted his Instagram this week that he's discharged thanks to the doctors and nurses, and he went on to say, "And all of my friends, I will post a story tonight," which unfortunately never did, to explain what happened. But he thanks the Lord, and he's looking forward to a clean bill of health moving forward. And yeah, at this point, it's unknown as to what exactly happened, but it's understandable. Some things you just want to keep private, you want to keep to yourself, not to mention doctor-patient confidentiality. So whatever it was, I'm personally glad to see Hacksaw Jim Duggan doing well, and that he's finally home. PW Insider is reporting from multiple sources, and they have confirmed Walter has signed with the WWE. The report comes after months and months of speculation that the wrestler initially denied signing with the company. Walter originally responded to a report by Dave Meltzer that said the company was interested in signing him, but saying nobody offered anything. And according to Meltzer, that's all not true. The Austrian wrestler will finish up his current independent dates, which were probably booked previously, and will be reporting to the WWE's European staples, which could include NXT UK brand. Now, this is also according to PW Insider that Pro Wrestling Guerrilla allegedly tried bringing him back for a farewell appearance, but the terms of the new WWE deal prevented that from happening. And it is also noted that the signing with WWE is why he dropped the PWG title to Jeff Cobb last month. So more indications that WWE is signing as many talent as possible to be, well, I get it. At the same time, I don't get it. I mean, there was a time where guaranteed contracts wasn't a thing. Why there was ever a what was the clause that Hogan had? Creative control. Why was that ever a thing? I'll never know. But if WWE is trying to be the only game in town, then I guess they can afford it. I mean, look what's coming their way just from a year from now when Smackdown basically moves over to Fox. My only concern is where are these guys going to go? I mean, yeah, they got NXT, they got NXT UK, they got 205 Live. Okay, great. The thing is, as strange as it sounds, the same amount of people don't watch Raw and SmackDown and vice versa. There's a very small percentage of fans that watch all of them across the board and keep up with who's who, who's where, who's debuting and all that. But it's a lot. And I really hope for all these talents that are signing for their sake that one, not only that they know what they're doing, but and not only that they're more than likely living out their dream, but just keep in mind what's happened to previous talents that They signed. It was expected. Finally we got you, and then they do nothing with you. I don't know if that's ever a conversation that's brought up, but I would have that right. Like, hey, listen, if I make this move, what about this? What about that? I have concerns. So because it's not written on paper and it's more of a verbal agreement, that probably won't hold up very well, say in wrestler's court. or if you happen to have your attorney there during that verbal agreement, then you got some legs to stand on. Otherwise, I don't remember saying that. I do not recall. Speaking of Braun Strowman, and this is something I should have mentioned earlier, but according to WrestleVotes on Twitter, who have been very reliable as of late when it comes to behind-the-scenes stories and inside scoops, if you will, but WrestleVotes is hearing that Braun Strowman may indeed be out past TLC coming up in a few weeks, and WWE is preparing to make the TLC match involving Baron Corbin into a multi-man contest, similar to the TLC match back at 2012. Something like this would not surprise me because, again, so many changes have been going on the fly at the last minute. Not really panic mode, but when the fire's lit under your ass, you got to come up with something. Not to mention, like I just got done mentioning just a few minutes ago, about all these talents being basically tied up with WWE contracts. Great, okay, but do you have something for them? And here's the thing, and I'm not denying or telling anyone to never live out your dreams. And in this case, if your dream is to be a part or work with WWE as an in-ring talent, in-ring performer or wrestler, by God, go for it. Live out your dreams. Fulfill all your fantasies, your wishes, all of that. Well, all I ask is to remain injury-free for as long as possible. Don't hurt anyone else that may be on the same level as you are, that's trying to live out their dream as well. Don't be an ass. And be kind to the fans. For a large part, had it not been for them, you would not be where you are or where you're going. The fans, and it said plenty of times, they don't do this anymore, but there were plenty of times in promos, it's the fans that make the wrestler who they are. Just, if you ask me, that's all I ask for. And I really hope whoever they choose is that they're chosen carefully and wisely. But let's face it, chances are we know what's going to happen here. McIntyre, Lashley, all these guys are going to get involved. Balor, maybe. But pretty much anyone that we've seen so far getting beaten up by this new authority figure team. Elias as well. Speaking of talent being signed up, the LAX has been removed from 2 upcoming appearances for Evolve in New York next month, as rumors have been making the rounds that WWE is interested in signing LAX. However, according to PW Insider Radio, the thinking there is that Impact wanted to keep LAX away from WWE's radar as much as possible. Interesting, as Mike Johnson noted that LAX's contract with Impact are expiring in the next couple of months. So this could be played into that decision to pull them out of the Evolve TV appearances, not TV appearances, but appearances at Evolve events in New York next month. And Evolve has a close relationship with WWE, so seeing what WWE is doing with all these talents from around the world and signing them up and locking them in these contracts, I don't blame you, but has anyone asked what LAX wants to do? I mean, it's happened before. I mean, Kenny Omega, how many times? The Young Bucks, how many times have they been asked, would you ever go to WWE? Like, oh, not right now. No, I'm happy where I am. They probably see what I've been mentioning this whole time, or they might know something we're not aware of that they're choosing not to sign. Not preventing them, but they are choosing not to sign, and there is a difference. I'm just wondering what LAX thinks about all this. That's all. And if anyone does know, please comment down below and keep me posted. But I'll find out myself and hopefully bring something to you as soon as possible. Matt Hardy has confirmed that he is not done with WWE as far as in-ring performing. As he tweeted, "My last WWE match hasn't happened yet. So this particular cycle shall be broken. But I'm sure the delightful cycle of Hardys and Hennings doing battle shall continue in the future." For those who are wondering, there's a bit of history, as Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig's last match in the WWE was against Matt Hardy. Ironically, Matt Hardy's last match was against Curtis Axel, the son of Curt Hennig. This comes from a fan who tweeted out to Matt, and this was his reply, pointing out that coincidence. And Hardy's not retired. And again, he never said that. He never did. And there were stories even then that he was nursing a lot of injuries. He was working through injuries. And that's how it was just taken. I know some fans didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. And it was more of, I'm not saying goodbye. I'm see you later. I'm hurt. I need to go home and make myself better. And for what it's worth, I'm glad to hear this. And we can maybe still get one last run with the Hardy Boys as with Brother Nero, the Matt Hardy brand, the whole deletion, Woken Universe thing. At least one short run. It doesn't have to be something like a year-long run with the tag titles. No, but the fact that there was ever a run period with the Woken Universe or the Deletion Universe with Matt and Jeff in the WWE, I think they'll make a lot of fans happy, but time will tell. Some sad news, unfortunately. Adam Copeland, better known as Edge, he lost his mom this week. And according to the necrocanada.com/obituary site, on December 8th, which is next Saturday at 2:30 p.m., there will be a celebration of Judy Copeland's life, held at Dotson McNair's funeral home. And visitations will begin at 1:30 p.m. Donations can be made in Judy's honor at the Orangeville and area OSPCA. A tree will be planted in her memory at the very same Dr. McNair Memorial Forest at the Island Lake Convention area in Orangeville. And the annual dedication services will be held on Sunday, September 8th, 2019 at 2 p.m. So I offer prayers, thoughts, and condolences to the Copeland family. It's a real tough time to go through right now. And for Edge, for Adam, hang in there, buddy. And I'll end with a couple of more stories here, but interesting story coming out of Kairi Sane's Twitter account. It was roughly translated because it was in Japanese, and I don't believe that the actual translation from Google had it right, but someone else, a fan, I believe, actually stepped in and translated more properly. But it's a weird story, to say the least. But on Twitter, what'd I say? But on Twitter, she revealed that she believes she somehow caught the Coxsackie virus, also known as hand, foot, and mouth disease. as she tweeted, according to the translation, although high fever went down, I feel mysterious eczema in my hands, feet, and mouth this time. Ouch. Do you go to hospital, hand, foot, mouth disease for it? She goes on, hand, foot, and mouth disease, as is in the United States. If it's a disease that infants under 5 years old are examined for, why did the virus get in my body by mistake? LOL. So I guess she knows what it might be, but she's not sure how you can, I guess, come across this virus. But according to the Mayo Clinic, for those who are unaware, even I wasn't, because I heard of it. I just wasn't sure exactly what it is and what does it do, or any side effects, if any. But it is a short-term virus that resolves in around 7 to 10 days. And symptoms can include fever, sore throat, and loss of appetite, in addition to rashes and blisters around the mouth, hands, feet, legs, and buttocks. It's in no relation to foot and mouth disease. Typically, it affects children 10 years old or younger, but anyone can contract the virus and can stay in someone's body for several days or even weeks. But the best way to prevent spreading is to wash your hands and practice good hygiene. So maybe Kairi Sane was around someone who didn't shower for a few days and came across this, unfortunately. But it's not anything serious, and it can be treatable. You just got to take care of yourself and probably advise others around you to, hey, if you haven't showered in a month, you might want to do this, because look what I'm going through now. And get well soon to Kairi Sane. And I'll wrap with this. I thought the show would go a little bit longer, but it's okay. I'm sure somebody's saying like, "Oh, that's the less we hear of you, the better," right? Former mayor and governor Jesse the Body Ventura apparently is considering a presidential run in 2020. I think he last spoke about this in 2008, but that didn't happen. And I run in 2014. In any case, he didn't run, and he was going to run as an independent, I believe. So Ventura was in an airport. I didn't say where it was, but I'm going to say somewhere out here on the East Coast. And TMZ Sports caught up with him, and apparently had a few interesting words to say as you're here for yourself, and you decide, what do you think? Is Jesse working us, or is he serious about a potential presidential run in 2020?
Will run at all?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah.
For real?
In fact, I'm being pressured right now. I'm getting a lot from the Green Party.
To run for them?
Yeah.
You're big into marijuana legalization, aren't you?
I'm big into cannabis legalization. I'm also into alternative energy big. We need to get away from fossil fuels. We got to go to the sun. It's time.
Yeah.
And
go to the sun?
Do what?
Oh, to get the okay.
Yeah. I'm the Greens have showed some interest. I haven't made a decision yet because it's a long time off.
Yeah.
But if I do it, rest assured of this. You got that running?
Yeah.
If I do it, Trump will not have a chance.
For real?
Because for one, Trump knows wrestling. He participated in 2 wrestling manias.
Facts.
He knows he can never out-talk a wrestler, and he knows I am the greatest talker wrestling's ever had. So if I go for it, he's history, and he knows it.
Well, there you have it. Jesse the Body Ventura is considering heavily a presidential run, as he looks like he's going to have plenty of backing for his support and a campaign of sorts coming up in 2020, not that far off, a couple of years from now. I believe the reporter / camera person kind of misunderstood Jesse Ventura when he said it's time to go to the sun. And his reaction, if you heard it there, like, what, it's time to go to the sun? not to explore it like we do with the moon or most recently Mars. No, I think Jesse was trying to imply that go to the sun for solar energy. You know, I don't know how or if NASA is capable of sending a shuttle to the sun and expect it to come back with any kind of results with, before turning into popcorn. I'm not sure. This is why I don't work for them. This is why I'm not even a scientist, let alone a student of science. But we shall see. It will definitely be interesting. Bit of correction there for Jesse. Those 2 appearances for number 45, I believe he was referencing to WrestleManias 4 and 5. He did make appearances, or at least one appearance at 7, and then of course involved with the Battle of the Billionaires at 23. So there was more than just 2 appearances there, but just for the record. And he's not wrong about number 45 not knowing about pro wrestling, because you kind of hear it in some of his dialogue nowadays. And look who he's good friends with. So I'm not implying anything, but when it comes to politics, at times, you got to talk that trash almost in character, like, because you want people to take you serious when you want to make a stand on certain points, on certain issues, and you got to stick to your guns. But maybe not. People see through that and don't take them seriously enough as maybe they should. I'm more concerned about not sneezing, and then all of a sudden he's headbutting the big red button that releases all the nuclear weapons. But let's hope that never happens. But anyway, chime in on your thoughts. What do you think of Jesse Ventura running for president in 2020? Does he have a chance? Will he run as an independent again, which he did not mention here, or would he run as a Republican or a Democrat? Who knows? And I know I mentioned earlier that I try to keep politics out of my show, but when it ties in with wrestling like this, it kind of has to be acknowledged. So here it is. Let me know what you think. Would you vote for Jesse, or would you re-elect number 45? Let me know. And as always, you can comment and like this video, subscribe, follow me throughout social media as described in the subscription down there. And one quick note, I just want to apologize because I know many were expecting this, but my interview with Hollywood from Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, the original Hollywood, unfortunately has been postponed until further notice. However, Hollywood reached out to her just yesterday, matter of fact. She agreed to reschedule. That will come hopefully real soon, and I'll keep you guys posted as when exactly that will happen, and I will provide the link as soon as it's available. But until then, I hope everyone enjoyed their long Thanksgiving week and celebration as we're now looking for the holidays. Stay warm, as it's been